The modern Israeli city of Tel Aviv completely surrounds the old town of Jaffa, or Joppa as it was known in biblical times. Like any port, Jaffa brings together people of many backgrounds to buy and sell and live. It claims to be the oldest port in the world. It was mentioned in the Acts of the Apostles and even earlier in the Old Testament. It was through this port that Solomon brought the cedars of Lebanon to build his temple. And it was from this port that Jonah began his disastrous voyage. And it's supposed to have been here in this house that Peter had his vision about clean and unclean food that persuaded him that the gospel wasn't just for those who kept the Jewish traditions and rituals, but for everyone. But why is Jaffa the home of the only school in the world run by the Church of Scotland? Tabeetha School was the vision of Jane Walker Arnott, who came to Jaffa in 1858. Jane worked for a few years in a community of Christian and Muslim Arabs and then returned home to Scotland. But when she got there, she couldn't forget the poverty of the women and girls of the Holy Land. And so in 1863, she came back. And in March of that year, 14 Jewish, Muslim and Christian girls started to study in Jane's own house. They were taught to read and write, they studied the Bible, and they learnt the skills of lace making and sewing. The lace was then sold in Scotland to raise money for the school. Around that time, one Thomas Cook was setting up a travel business. He was taking people on tours, first of all of Britain, and then the rest of the world. Cook was a Baptist missionary, and he wanted to give people something better to do with their money than spend it on drink. Among the tours he organised were trips to the Holy Land, and he generously gave a lot of money to Jane to buy land just outside the walls of the old city. And in 1874, he laid the foundation stone of the new school, which opened its doors the following year. Jane died 48 years after she first took in those 14 girls. She left the school to the Church of Scotland, which has run it ever since. 145 years later, there are just a few changes to the old building. 20 years ago, some of the classrooms were adapted with support from the Women's Guild, and thanks to the generosity of parents and former pupils, there's a garden. There's a sports area, not exactly huge, but enough for inventive staff to run a sports day for pupils who are clearly enjoying themselves. A sign of the times in Israel, they've added a bomb shelter, which doubles as an exam hall. The girls' dormitory's been turned into a library. And it was here, in what's now a classroom, that Jane actually lived for the 48 years that she ran the school. Today, Tabeetha School has 300 pupils, boys as well as girls, Christians, Jews and Muslims, who come from all over the world. And the staff too are from mixed backgrounds, Christians, Jews and Muslims, Scots, Israelis and Arabs.
Lots of issues about living in the Holy Land. Sometimes it's not as holy as you would hope it would be, and there's ups and downs for children, but coming into the school, the whole ethos is Christian, our values are all Christian values, we take them to heart, we try to live by them.
And how do you do that? You say that you inculcate Christian values in the school. What does that mean in practice?
It means in practice that everyone is treated the same, that our Arab children are exactly the same as our Jewish children, our Christian children. It means that everybody values that diversity that we have. In Scotland, nobody talks about religion, but in Israel, everybody talks about it. It's very evident everywhere. It doesn't matter which religion people come from. You can't tell from our children whether they're Christian, they're Jewish, they're Muslim, they're nothing. You know, they just are all treated exactly the same, and it's so evident.
So write it as a subtitle underneath the question, what problems did child workers face?
How does the school manage to reconcile such a divergence of cultures and, frankly, religions, which elsewhere in the world cannot find reconciliation?
It's one of those professions, teaching, a little bit like medicine. You go into it to save lives, not to worry about whose life you're saving. And I think the same is true of the teaching profession also. It should be irrelevant, the background of the individual that you're teaching or the background of your colleagues. And I think that is what makes the place so unique. Again, I don't think it's any more unique than schools elsewhere in the world. But I think it's unique because of where it is in the world and what's going on around us.
It's a Christian school, although not everyone is Christian or necessarily believes in God. It's still a Christian school. In this class, I primarily teach about Christianity. I'm not Christian, but I actually kind of steer away from teaching about my religion. I'm very careful not to put my views across too much to the children.
Often the youngsters ask, what do you think about this? It will usually be a specific topic rather than, say, faith in general. And I'll give my point of view, but points of view change, even within yourself. I've had different beliefs and different views, and also the other thing I have, which I've sort of just discovered recently through one of the youngsters actually, is that you can actually hold two beliefs at the one time. Talk about something as indescribable as God, you know, in a sense you can't go wrong. You'll have one child saying that and another saying that, and they can all be held together. How I sum up God in my mind, if one can do that, which one can't, is the verse that God is the still small voice, which in Hebrew is called the Mama Daka, which means the silent voice or the voice of silence. And then if you add to that the fact that God intervenes and is a personal God, so on the one hand he's completely unknown and unknowable, and on the other hand personal.
Back in Edinburgh, the General Assembly's procurator, the QC who guides the Assembly on legal issues, volunteers in her spare time to help children with reading in Craig Miller's Castleview Primary.
Laura is one of our volunteers who comes and supports once a week, and she works in the primary 3 class helping to raise attainment in reading, giving one-to-one time with children. Just another adult, somebody else to talk to, somebody else to be there, someone who's interested.
Something that's quite like what Rosie drew.
And she's formed a link between the two schools.
Could you ask there, what is your teacher? I'm part of a volunteering project which is for people who are over 50 actually, and the idea is that people in that age bracket might be able to come and work in schools and spend a bit longer getting to know children. The focus is literacy, so coming and helping with reading, but in practice I try and help with whatever the children are doing.
Laura approached me and talked about the Tabeetha School and said that she was maybe possibly going to go out to Israel, and I thought it sounded great, and I said, on you go, and bring anything back for our children. We want to get the best for them and their families.
I've been procurator to the church for 14 years, and some conversations took place about periodic trips that they make to Israel, and they knew that I was interested in going.
When you write someone a letter, it's quite normal.
Nicola Smith, the class teacher, worked with her Year 3 pupils to prepare letters for Laura to take to Israel.
On a morning the week before I went, Nicola set aside the whole morning, and she had printed out blank letters for the children to write, and also Scottish flags for them to do their own interpretation of, and she'd provided crepe paper and wool and all sorts of things. Might be Craigmillar Castle, mightn't it? What did you say in your letter? Did you say how old you were?
My name is David Owadi and I am 7 years old.
Dear pupils, my name is Rosie. I would like to ask you some questions about school is like in Israel.
Laura took the letters from Castle View's pupils and delivered them to the children in Jaffa.
Everyone sit down! No one can say.
I'm at Castle View Primary School in Edinburgh in Scotland. I would like to ask you some questions about your school in Israel.
Did you get David's letter?
And Tabeetha's pupils were fascinated by the Edinburgh letters and sent back letters of their own.
Please find responses to the lovely letters from your grade 3 class. So we've got one back to Ava. So, dear Ava, thank you for your letter. My name is Noelle and my birthday is 31st of March 2010.
What's striking about these schools is the similarity. The classroom walls. And outside, the buddy benches where pupils who don't have anyone to talk to can sit and find others.
It's an amazing school, and day to day I get on with my job and I teach and I do what I'm meant to be doing, and then it's times like these where it's highlighted how amazing this school is, that we have children from all over the world, all different languages, all different religions, cultures, traditions, and we're sitting in a classroom all together learning.
Do you all have different languages?
Yes, I speak Bulgarian, I speak English and Hebrew, and I understand a bit of Russian, and I know a bit of Arabic.
Like with my friend Andre, I speak Russian and English, and with my friend Leo, I speak Hebrew and English.
A little bit Arabic, a little bit Hebrew, and I speak in my home always Hindi.
What language do you speak at home?
Russian.
And what language do you speak in the school?
English.
We often talk about respect, about you might not agree with what somebody else thinks, but that we work together and we help each other no matter what. When we do birthdays in the class, we sing happy birthday in every language that we have in the class. We have parents come in for their child's birthday and they watch the children singing. We go through English and Hebrew and Arabic and Russian, sometimes Bulgarian, French sometimes, Spanish sometimes. And it's incredible to see all these children from all different places, all different feelings and traditions coming together.
Craigmillar, where Castleview is situated, is an area of regeneration, and with that regeneration has brought new families, new cultures into this community. We now have over 1/3 of our pupils who have English as an additional language, compared to when I first came here and it was predominantly just white Scottish English speaking families. I think for the children to get the idea that there's children on the other side of the world who are just like them, and they've got the same needs and the same wants, they're interested in the same games, and to make that connection. And these are the children that are going to go forward in the future and be the citizens of our future world. And I think for them to appreciate and understand each other is a brilliant thing.